WATD presents John Paul, the Car Doctor. All things automotive. Have questions? Call 781-837-4900. Now, here's John Paul, the Car Doctor.
And good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. My name's John Paul, the Car Doctor, here to help you with your car problems on this sort of overcast, sticky Sunday morning. Hopefully you had a enjoyable 4th of July and you're enjoying yourselves, but hopefully you're enjoying yourselves responsibly too. Between Memorial Day and Labor Day is considered the 100 deadliest days on the road. That's the time where we see more car crashes, we see more injuries, we unfortunately see more deaths, and there's a lot of combinations of things. Is it because people imbibe too much? Is it because of lack of experience? Or is it all of those things? And with us is driving expert Dan Strollo from the In Control Family Foundation. Dan, good morning. Welcome to the Car Doctor program, and happy 4th of July.
Yeah, happy, 7th of July now?
Yeah.
John. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm running a little behind, so.
Nothing wrong with that, just don't play with fireworks.
I learned that a long time ago. This time, and I kind of mentioned, just before you went on, this time between Memorial Day and Labor Day is considered the 100 deadliest days, and a lot of that just has to do with driver inexperience, and some of it has to do with kids coming back from college, or they're out on break over the summertime, and before we get into your school, a lot of what we see just becomes from inexperience, right?
Yeah. No, it's really upsetting to me that I think a lot of families or parents will think, oh, kids are home for the summer and they're partying and they're doing these silly things, and that's why maybe we're losing more. But the truth is they're just driving more. The windows are down and the radio's on, but it doesn't mean they're abusing substances or doing anything out of the ordinary. They're just inexperienced and getting in most of the driving that they might do in a year in a short, 2.5 month period.
And really, and then there's some things that, there was recently some crash and I forget what it was, a Toyota RAV4 or CRV or something, and, there was seven kids in it, in a vehicle that seats 5. On a good day, it seats 5.
Yeah.
Yep. You see that kind of stuff, and obviously, probably most of them didn't have seatbelts on because, at least 2 of them didn't. So
they just didn't have them. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I
tell you, one of the things, all these kids, they know, and this is, I'm hoping this starts to change, but there have not been nearly as many tickets given out for just about anything in the last couple of years. You started with the pandemic and a desire not to, put human beings next to each other, and then there was some other issues within police departments that led to fewer tickets being given out. And I happen to own too many teenagers of my own, and none of these kids expect to get tickets for speeding, or, they might get stopped and spoken to, but they're kind of aware that tickets don't get given out. And I think I may have mentioned this to you once before. Last summer, I drove from Boston to California, picked up my daughter who was graduating college, went through a bunch of national parks, and drove back, pulling a trailer the whole time, 8,000 miles, and we saw 1 speed trap. And that was a very different experience than any road trip I ever took, with my parents back in the day. It was very surprising.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, and something I guess I didn't realize. About a month ago now, I drove 1,600 or so miles from Florida back here, and you're right. I think I maybe saw a couple of troopers out on the road driving, but you're right. I don't think I saw a speed trap anywhere.
Yeah, and they're short-staffed. Besides the not necessarily wanting to anger the public piece of the equation, if you don't have enough people, you've got to respond to the emergencies. You can't necessarily do the proactive stuff you would like to do. So it's definitely complicated. And, again, having these teenagers that are so close to me, I'm kind of blown away by how intelligent and dumb they can be at the same time. They can determine that, we're not going to get tickets, so we can do these dumb things. And that just is the way it's been for the last couple of years, for sure.
Well, and I suppose, in the little town I spend the winter in Florida, there's a local YouTuber who does a series called No Cops, No Stops, and he just videotapes himself going through stop signs.
Oh. I hope that's not a good way to make a living. That makes me nervous. And
apparently it is
with 7 kids in it.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Apparently it is a good way to make a living because he seems to be buying real estate all over the place. So.
Oh God, that's scary.
Yeah.
So, but back to your original comment about so many kids in one car, one of the things I'll talk to parents about is, yes, the minivan that you're thinking about letting your teen drive is on a car chassis. So I'm not particularly nervous about the idea of it being more difficult to lose control of. But now you're opening up an invitation for them to put 8 more bodies or 7 more bodies in it, and the extra weight and the distractions and everything else versus a nice small sedan, maybe painted pink with your cell phone number on the side of it, whatever you think would be most appropriate, is not a bad first car.
Jesse, our producer, his kids I don't think are quite old enough to drive, but Jesse, you want to weigh in on that? Maybe for one of your kids, getting them a small car, paint it pink, and put your phone number on the side of it?
Yeah, I do that. I already did that.
Oh, you did? Okay, all right. As long as you got that covered, yeah. Let's talk about your school and how important it is, and you're obviously a big driver education advocate, but really driver's ed, and I work for a company that probably has one of the largest driving schools in the area.
Sure.
But we really just teach kids how to get their license. We don't really teach them how to drive.
Yeah, I don't want to take anything away from traditional driver's education, either in Massachusetts or across the country. I do think it plays a significant role, and I hate that more and more kids are skipping it and waiting until they're older. But at the end of the day, it's the test that is the important piece. And so if you were to get your license in Germany, you have a 1-hour road test. If you get your license in Massachusetts, it's kind of 5 minutes maximum. You don't hear too many stories of a young driver, experiencing more than 5 minutes. And so to make that decision as to whether or not somebody's capable of driving involves some pretty rudimentary skills, as opposed to an hour where you're out on the highway and then you're in city streets and then you're in a private lot putting the car into a skid and proving you can regain control. And so therefore, the driving school's role, as you described, tends to be more focused on getting the license, and that's also somewhat the responsibility of the parents. They're looking for the driving school that's going to make sure their kid passes the road test, as opposed to, there's not some great statistic out there with here's the driving school that has the kids who've avoided crashes.
Yeah, and I think, you think about that, and you think about, you mentioned something about, parents' responsibility. It's also kind of the parents' responsibility to be a good role model when they're behind the wheel too, right?
Oh, my God, yeah. Absolutely. Once that car seat gets turned around, which hopefully is a little older than it was, just a few years ago, they're watching you. And if you're tailgate, the truth of the matter is, I'm the executive director of an organization called the In Control Family Foundation, and we do 2 things. One is this hands-on closed course, and the other is community engagement. And in my community engagement role, I'm speaking at events, or we're trying to bring programs into school systems, and a lot of times we're trying to talk to parents. And I will ask a room full of people. If I can get an audience of 50 to 100, it's an amazing situation nowadays, because that just doesn't happen as much. But I'll ask how many people think they're a good driver, and more than half the room will put their hands up. And by the time I'm done, I re-ask the question, and there might be 2 or 3 holdouts, and maybe they are decent drivers. But once I've talked about a few different concepts and people in the room realize they've been doing it wrong, and that's the problem we have on our roadways, is all these folks think they're good drivers, and they're tailgating and doing all these erratic moves and thinking that's good when it just isn't, and their kids are watching them the whole time.
You mentioned, taking a driver's test in Germany versus the United States. The United States used to be rated as a really safe country to drive in. We've sort of lost that, haven't we?
Yeah. Number 1 in the 70s, and now we're generally around 40th place. And, so
did everybody get better?
Another concept. Well, that's it. I think we've all the U.S. is focused on technology, and I'm not knocking technology. I'm a geek. I like technology. But when it comes to my vehicle, there are pieces of technology in it that I still to this day do not understand. And I'm pretty intelligent when it comes to this stuff. And I see people using the technology. ABS brakes is one of the things that has been around for a very long time. And in your audience, if we ask them today how many of them know what it stands for, a lot of them are going to say automatic braking, which is not the case. It's anti-lock braking. But when you really push down and say, what is the benefit of it? People don't know. And really the big benefit that ABS brakes brings to the table is you can apply those brakes as hard as you possibly can and still steer. And that was a huge differentiator because the wheels will not lock up. If you got in, I always brag about my 1977 Mercury Monarch. That was my first car. I bought it from the junk. I think I bought it from Mop-Free Insurance or Commerce Insurance back in the day because my mom was driving it. It got totaled. I paid $50. I fixed it up. I'm driving down the road at 40 miles an hour. Somebody cuts me off. I slam on the brakes. All four wheels lock up, and I just keep sliding the same direction no matter how I turn that wheel. But if I had ABS brakes back in the time, I could have turned the wheel and steered the vehicle in that direction. Back then, I needed to do what's called threshold braking, or a lot of people call, pumping the brakes. But honestly, too many people try to pump the brakes with ABS brakes today because they don't know the difference, and it impacts their ability to stop. So there's all this technology that we've added to cars, but we never trained anybody how to use it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So I'm going to say that ABS brake stands for allows you to brake and steer at the same time.
Very good way to put it. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if maybe we could spread that a little bit better, people to actually know what it does.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the school. The school is, let's talk about location first.
Sure. We are currently training in Weymouth regularly, Weymouth, Mass., just south of Boston. We are going to be coming to a couple different places across Massachusetts and beyond later this year. We used to train just north of Boston and North Andover, but our friends at Amazon bought the site, and we just learned only a couple months ago that we can't come back. So they've put a big warehouse there. But we are looking at some other locations to offer it. But it's a half-day program. It's about 5 hours. So, if I gave you tickets to the Patriots, maybe not so much last year, but generally you'd go to a Patriots game. So I hope if somebody, takes the initiative to get signed up for training, they'll make the trek, even if it is an hour drive because it's only a half day of time. And the program itself will put drivers of all skill levels. We have permanent drivers. We like to see people about a month before their road test, but certainly if you've got your license, you're not suddenly an expert driver. That's one of the messages we try to make clear to the parents and drivers of all ages. Come train. And when you go through these emergency situations, you're going to fail. We use a big open runway so you can make mistakes, but then you'll learn from that mistake, and we'll set the cones back up again and let you do the drill a second time, and generally people get it down pretty well.
So it's half of it's classroom, half of it's trying to understand why you need to do this, and half of it's behind the wheel, right?
Exactly. I try to break it down into three parts. There's the classroom, because you really do need to talk about what you're doing, and you can only ride around in a car bouncing around so often, or we're going to have people getting sick. So it's kind of one of the things that surprises me is we've got the recipe set up pretty well so that we don't have a lot of folks who get car sick having problems, which is nice. Then we demonstrate the drill, and we have our instructor drive, and maybe two or three, four people in the car with them, and then it's one-on-one. And so it's about a third. And some drills you pick up like that, and other drills you got to keep doing them for a little bit until you get it. And every personality is different, so we try to work with people, on their individual. One of the first things they're going to ask them is, what's your name? Wear a little name tag, and what car are you going to drive? And then my instructor can talk to them about anything that might be different about their car versus ours. Because frankly, we go through tires every 7 days. You don't want to do this to your own car if you can avoid it. But if in an emergency you need to, we want to make sure you're going to know how it's going to behave.
What are the cars these days that you're using?
It's funny you say that. We just extended our leases because there was a recall on them that doesn't impact our training, but it did impact our ability to get a good lease deal for the renewal. So we are driving Honda Accords right now, and I think we're going to get Honda Accords again. But over the next couple of months, we've got to figure that out.
So
I would say to your audience, be a little careful about buying white Honda Accords that may have said "in control" on the door in the next couple of months.
That has either brand new tires or completely worn out tires, one or the other.
Exactly. We try to leave a little tread on them when we turn them back in, but definitely the lease turn-in is always scares me with these.
And it really makes. I mean, Honda Accord, probably one of the most popular cars sold in the United States. So you're driving a car that you may be driving anyway. So really sort of makes sense. And you mentioned the age of people from that have been driving them for a long time and people that just got their learner's permit. But I heard years ago, it takes about 5 years to be really good at anything. If you got 5 years of driving experience and you learn a little bit every day, you're probably pretty good at it at the end of 5 years. Just because you got your driver's license doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a good driver. It's going to take years of practice to become that good driver. And I mean, just like very few people can pick up the guitar and play I don't know, Stairway to Heaven the first minute they pick up the guitar. But on the other hand, it takes that time, it takes that experience, and I think if most of us look back of when we got our first car, probably had very similar experiences to you in your Mercury Monarch. Yeah.
No, I will say there's a lot of things that we're doing a lot more commercial training today than we did even just 3 or 4 years ago. The pandemic was a situation where I had to let myself go and all my staff, and we volunteered, or a group of us volunteered, to kind of keep the lights on. And it was a few months before we could train again, and I had a conversation with my board about we need to figure out a way to make sure we're staying alive in order to reach more teens and families with the training. And so we've done more commercial training, but man, we get students, drivers 25 to 35 who have had their license for 10 or 15 years but just didn't drive. They lived in the city, and now they've got a new job where they have to drive. And sometimes it's frankly scary. And so, just because you've had your license for 5 years does not make you an expert driver. It just means you had the access to driving. And in today's time, back with my Mercury Monarch, if we wanted to go see our friends, I had to drive to the Friendly's parking lot in town and hang out. And now they can FaceTime and, play video games and call an Uber and maybe not get their license until they're in their 20s, which is a whole other, issue altogether. So there's a lot of variance to when someone becomes a good driver. And I think there's some people out there that think that Google car is going to come any day now, so why do I even need to? Which, it will come eventually. But in the meantime, if you get a new job and you've got to drive 45 minutes every day, that's going to be a challenge.
You brought up something about age, and a neighbor of mine works for the Teamsters, and we were talking about people getting jobs driving trucks, and he said the younger guys that come in and women that come in and go to Teamsters tractor trailer school, he said catch on pretty well. The people that are in their 50s that decide they're giving up whatever their job was and they're going to become a truck driver, he said there's a lot of habits that are really hard to break.
Yeah.
Is there a certain age that seems more open or responsive or just seems to get it within your school?
That's a great question. Because of the, I'm going to call it drama that we put these folks through, we tend to, there is an age when we do classes with councils on aging and senior centers around the state, we will sometimes have people that basically are just saying, my behavior is not going to change. And frankly, they'll say, now that I see how long it took me to stop in this situation, or, I'm not going to drive, which isn't across the board. We don't, report people if they fail the course or anything like that. But we get a high percentage of folks in that age range. But for the most part, the stuff that they're figuring out, if you have enough experience, we really don't want to see drivers if they haven't been driving. So if you've got one of these, you had your permit for 3 weeks and your parents just got really excited to sign you up for our course, it's really not a good match, because we're going to be having to focus on just general operating of the vehicle and not the drill, and it will generally fail that person and ask them to come back in a couple of weeks at no charge. I mean, we're a 501c3. We're not looking to gold plate the office. We just want to make people safer. As people get more experienced, they really tend to click. You know, the fear I have is we're not doing the on-road training, so we do get a lot of very green drivers who I think, you know, have figured out, or we've helped them with some of they're not going to tailgate, they're going to be able to control the car in emergency situations, but they haven't had the 1,000 hours I'd like to have them drive before they're actually doing something professionally. I mean, human services. We have people driving vans full of people, and they got their license at 17 or 18. Now they're 23, 24. They got this job, but they may have only driven 100 hours in those years. And the family didn't have a car. They lived in the city, and that's just the way it was. Not to mention law enforcement, same thing. We'll find a lot of people who work in cities for law enforcement who've, you know, confided in us. They very rarely go over 30 miles an hour, and now they're being asked to drive a police car.
Yeah, I mean, really good point. I remember years ago, a friend of mine, professional truck driver, worked for a pretty good-sized company, a bunch of trucks, and his boss decided all the truck drivers need to go to your school. And he's like, why? I've been driving a truck for 30 years. Why do I need to do this? And then when he was done, he came back and he goes, I learned some stuff, and it was good.
Yeah.
And I was surprised.
We have a lot of fun with those situations. So often we'll have a group, you know, either kids in the morning who have no morning or afternoon even who just don't want to be there, or a group of employees who were told they have to go, and in the first 20 minutes they're like, who did this to us? And then the rest of the day is smiles and high-fiving each other, and, you know, we don't promote it as something that's particularly fun, but I do think it's fun to learn. And doing, you know, slamming on the brakes in a car at 60 miles an hour is arguably a little fun. It's intimidating, but, you know, doing it so that you can learn how the car is going to behave and you won't be intimidated in the future is really important.
Well, let's talk about how our audience, if they're interested in taking your class, or they're interested in, you know, maybe it's a business that has, pizza delivery or something, and they want to send
plumbers, landscapers, yeah.
Yeah. How do they go
I
about...
would direct any of them, come right to our website. The website is driveincontrol.org. Driveincontrol.org. You'll find, you know, directions from there, pretty much what to do. Any contact us forms go to me. My name is Dan, and it explains some of the grants that are out there. If you've got a company in Massachusetts under 100 employees, it's not even going to cost you to do the training. If you've got a larger company, there's some other grants we can help you get. If you're doing it as an individual, there's a lot of insurance discounts for your family. There's subsidies out there to help the training be more affordable. We're doing a lot of school visits for anybody in your audience who's got connections within their community for school. We're trying to do more programs with the schools to kind of get the word out there about this. So get in touch with me. I'd be happy to talk to them. But that website's kind of the gateway, or they can give us a call at 978-658-4144.
And, let's try to make the time between Memorial Day and Labor Day something other than the 100 deadliest days. Yeah.
You know, John, one thing I wanted to mention that I think you and I have talked about before, but I think is so important is, you know, I've got teenagers, I've got boys. There's been, you know, post-pandemic, a lot of real anxiety and depression that kids are struggling with. And, you know, I hear the statistics for teenagers is, you know, gun violence is now the leading cause of death. And a lot of that is tied to suicide, which is terrible. And I don't want to take away the spotlight that is shined on that. But if you look at the number of kids we've lost age 15 to 25 and compare it to 20 years ago, and then look at the number of kids we're losing age 19 to 25, which has now become the highest risk group for driving, it's astronomically higher than it used to be. We're getting worse. And the kids are just getting their license at an older age and driving less when they're younger. And then all of a sudden, it's just tragedies on top of tragedies. And what I think the biggest piece of that equation that's so sad is when kids pass away in a high school environment, the whole town mourns the loss, and hopefully it becomes a lesson to future kids. But now they're not part of the community the same way. They're either in the workforce or they're at college, and unless your algorithm happens to share that story on your social media of the day page, you don't know. And so I think that's one of the things I'd love parents to understand a little bit better as they focus on trying to get, safe kids out into the world, is this is becoming a bigger problem, and it really doesn't need to be.
And you sort of mentioned it real quick, but if you have a business that's under 100 employees in Massachusetts, you with a little bit of work, you can send them through your school for free.
If you spend 15 minutes on the application for that grant, you've spent more time than the average, and in 3 weeks you're approved. It's part of the Workforce Training Fund, and it's an express grant that has been incredibly valuable. And that group, both the Department of Industrial Accidents and the Workforce Training Fund folks, have been super supportive because they've gotten such great feedback from their folks who've gone through it. So I'm happy to walk people through that, but it's super easy.
Dan, one more time, give out the website so people know where to go.
driveincontrol.org.
Dan, as always, thank you for joining us on the Car Doctor program. I appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thanks, John. Stay cool.
I'll do my best. Thank you. You as well. Why don't we take a break, pay some bills? My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. You're listening on 95.9 WATD. We'll be right back.
AAA is with you at every moment in your life. They have 24/7 roadside assistance, which covers you in any car you're driving or riding in, even a rental or your friend's wheels. They have great member rates on home and auto insurance, savings on travel, hotels, and rental cars, and discounts on hundreds of your favorite brands. You're covered on and off the road. Learn more at aaa.com/join.
Start your Sunday off right with brunch at the Old Hitching Post in Hanson. The Old Hitching Post offers a full buffet brunch every Sunday from 10 to 1. Fill up on all your favorites like eggs and bacon, sausage, home fries, French toast casserole, mac and cheese, homemade hash, fresh seafood, rice, veggies, fresh fruit, quiche, yogurt parfaits, pastries, ham, omelets, eggs Benedict, and more. The Old Hitching Post Sunday brunch from 10 to 1 at 48 Spring Street, Route 58 in Hanson. Online at oldhp.com. That's OLDEHP.com.
Hey, this is Kylie Evans. Tune into Twilight Showcase Radio, hosted by Sandy Stride and Keith James on 95.9 WATD and also at 95.9WATD.com. Search for Twilight Showcase on Facebook and visit twilightshowcase.org.
Twilight Showcase, tonight from 8 to 10 on 95.9 WATD.
Explanation here. Did some AI program develop this?
Yes, rapidly fast.
Wow. It's got me in there. It's got you in there. Whew.
I didn't even tell it to call me Handsome Jesse. I don't know where that came from, but yeah.
It just knew better.
It does, yeah. It is known in the radio world.
I can understand. Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk to Tom in Kingston. Tom, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
What a show today! What a wealth of information.
Well, it's just, to me, it's just important to let people know that there are some options out there to really help keep drivers safe. I will say, my wife got into a car crash back in 2015, and it really shook her confidence. And both of us went through In Control. And at the time, they weren't in Weymouth, and they were up in North Andover. And it was. I had been through different kinds of driving courses before, and I thought it would help get my wife some confidence back, and I think it did.
Yeah.
But at the end of the class, they asked to do surveys, and Dan, I don't think, has ever gotten a bad survey from his class, except the one my wife wrote. And he calls me up and he goes, "Hey, what's going on? Your wife gave us a bad review." Because this is even though they usually say, you don't have to put your name in it, I always tend to put my name on everything. So if somebody has a question, if somebody thinks, I didn't.
Same way, yeah.
Yeah. So he calls me up and he goes, "What's the deal with your wife? Gave us a bad review." And I said, "Well, what did she say?" And she said, "Well, there was something about the instructors." And I said, we talked about it on the ride home, and she said, "Well, they made me do things I don't like to do, like go 60 miles an hour and jam on the brakes, or go 60 miles an hour, jam on the brakes, and then avoid the parked car that's in front of you by steering and stopping." And she said, "I don't like to do that." And I said, "Well, that's the whole point. It takes you out of your comfort zone, and you don't do that every day." But that one time you need to do it, it's important. And years and years ago on the program 3 radio stations ago, Dennis, my producer, we used to call him Crash because it seemed like every 6 months he was running into something.
Oh, boy.
And he actually went through In Control, and he's like, that was really good. And he lost the name Crash afterwards. And part of it had to do with that anticipation, that looking down the road, looking at what's going on around you, knowing you can stop and steer and all that sort of stuff. So,
how many days course is it?
It's just it's a half a day. It's 5 hours.
5 hours?
5 hours, yep.
And what's the average price?
I think it's about $300. And in Massachusetts, unless it's changed, you can actually get that more or less that money back on your insurance because it's one of the few courses. But like Dan pointed out, there's also grants available for individuals. Yeah. There's grants available for businesses. So there's ways to do this and not spend the $300. So you just need to. A lot of insurance companies will pay for half of it, kind of thing.
Sure.
Years ago, I took a 2-day kind of a driving course down at Lime Rock. It was, I think it was my birthday, and I did it as a birthday present to myself, sort of thing. And I want to say that was 5 times as expensive. But it was on a track, and it was, there were little race cars and stuff. But did I learn anything more in that track experience than I did in a 5-hour class, on a airstrip? Probably not. There was some stuff they taught you that was more racing related than driving related, but it was still basically a driving class.
I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience. I started driving when I was like 15 years old, illegally. I think I got my permit at 15.9. Back then you could do it.
Yep.
And then got my license as soon as possible. So I've been driving since then. And I started working for a communication company. And after, 5, 7, 8 years working for the company, driving a vehicle around, going from location to location,
yep,
they put us through a driver's course. And like Dan was saying, here's these truck drivers saying, going to go teach me how to drive. It taught us offensive driving along with defensive driving, like coming to a 4-way stop. What do you do? And not to use hand signals, because if you do hand signals, my understanding is that you could be responsible or accountable for any accidents because the other person can say, well, he directed me through there. You got to be careful.
Right.
But the offensive driving has taught me a lot over the years that I was able to apply. Now, driving down Route 3 or any of these places, 128, any of these main roads, you see people driving. Dan's right. I mean, I shake my head and say, there's an accident ready to happen. Tailgating and everything. And like you said, in the old days, what did they always have right before a senior prom? They show a car accident on the front lawn somewhere. they don't do that anymore. I don't hear of it anyway.
Yeah, it's rare to see that. I remember I set that up for actually. It might have been like Weymouth High School years ago. I went to a junkyard and we towed the car back and tipped it on its side and made it look even worse than it really was. But
sure.
Yeah, I don't think that's really done anymore. And the idea, what you just said. I mean, I live in a touristy town. There's an intersection about a mile away from me that I think there has been 6 car crashes in, I don't know, the 3 or 4 weeks I've been back to town, and it's a 4-way intersection, stop signs on 2 ways, and people just either go through the stop sign because they don't see it, and they actually put signs up under the stop sign that says, crossroads do not stop, and people just aren't paying attention. And the other thing is, twice now I've been out for a walk and in a crosswalk, and twice I've almost got hit, and because I'm paying attention, I didn't get hit. But somebody got waved. What you just pointed out, somebody got waved out of an intersection, out of a parking lot, and all of a sudden nails the gas to come out into the street. I'm standing right there. Well, fortunately, I'm a foot away from the middle of the road, and all of a sudden the guy looks up like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "What are you doing not paying attention to people in the crosswalk?"
Yikes.
And just the other day I was walking down the street, and somebody just backs up out of a driveway into the middle of the street, and I'm standing right there, and I'm like, "I saw you look to the right. How about looking to the left to see if there's anybody coming that way?" And one of those people is me, and I'm just walking,
And you're probably just many of different examples has happened. How many accidents you hear on the news, and you hear the person got thrown across the field or across the way? That tells me right away they weren't wearing a seatbelt.
Absolutely.
Like, what is it with that? Many years ago, I went into a parking lot, a Kmart parking lot, when it was snowing out, and this is right before they said it's mandatory to wear seatbelts. It's like, I don't like this idea of wearing seatbelts. This is crazy. And it had some snow on the ground, and I said, I'm going to do my own testing. And I went in there, and I did, step on the gas, try to stop, and it's like, oh, I can stop. I'm fine. I have control. And then I put my seatbelt on, and what a difference of being able to control the vehicle.
Yeah, the seatbelt holds you in place too, and that's if you have to make a really quick evasive maneuver, why do you think race cars have seatbelts in them? They have to protect them in a crash, but also to hold them in the seat when they're making those high speed turns. And you brought up a good point, that the days of going into Kmart parking lot and kind of playing around in the snow. Nobody really does that anymore. And even at Dan's school, when it snows, they do a winter training because they plow a bunch of snow out onto the runway and, teach what it's like to drive in the snow. And they also, and I forgot to ask them, they also had a trailer backing up course. So, for the people that bought boats and camping trailers and jet skis because of COVID and they wanted to, be able to get out and away from the world, they were teaching people how to back up a trailer, something I could seriously use. But it's one of those things that the idea of safe driving and just kind of looking at everything around you is important. And every once in a while I like to take the program a little bit off the car repair side and talk about being safe.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's really a good program, and I highly recommend it. I took myself off the road because I'm dealing with MS, multiple sclerosis, so my reaction time isn't that good anymore, so I have the Queen, my wife, do the driving now. They do driving to her. But after 50 years of driving and, working for a utility company, I've seen so much out there, and it's like seatbelts are number one, protection. And the way they build cars today, there's no frames or anything else like that. The cars you see in accidents, even a little bumper, backup bumper, you're looking at $800-900 worth of damage.
Oh, at least the amount of damage. I mean, the good thing is today's cars actually do crush up and crumple, and that's designed so you ride down the G-force inside the car. Bad for the car though, because it can get expensive, and even when it comes to things like tires, the difference between a tire that's worn out at 2 or 3 30 seconds, and 2 30 seconds is where you see the wear bars, that space between the edge of a penny and Lincoln's head.
Right.
And
right.
4 30 seconds at 60 miles an hour in the rain, it's about a 60-foot different stopping distance, that 4 or 5 30-second tire and that 2 30-second tire. And that's the length of a tractor-trailer. So you're thinking if you're out on the highway, it's raining, and all of a sudden you have to jump on the brakes real hard, you're going to slide 60 feet more because you didn't buy tires? Kind of dumb.
And then put the other thing into effect, the brake pads that you get nowadays. The difference, I know Ray Bestis, I think it was them that did the little thing. They showed the difference between the normal brake pads you buy at the local store and their pads with the material that they use. Going, I forget, it was 30, 40 miles an hour, jam on the brakes, the difference in footage.
Yep. No, I'm a little bit, I'm a little bit concerned. My Hyundai, the car that I drive mostly, doesn't have a lot of miles on it, but it was, I'm looking at the brakes and I'm like, I think I'm going to put, before I head back to Florida in the fall, I'm going to put pads and rotors on it. And I got I was looking online, I'm looking at Wagner and Ray Bestis and, some others, and even they get a little confusing now because all of a sudden they have multiple lines of different brakes where Ray Bestis years ago had kind of an economy line and their regular line. And so I decided, one company that seemed to get pretty good reviews is a company called Power Stop, and I'm going to give them a try. I got 4 rotors and 2 sets of pads sitting in a box that, are going to go on it sometime, and it's the first time I've ever bought brake pads that were not the name brand that I recognize. So hopefully I didn't do something stupid, but they look like they got good reviews. They look like they got good quality. They have they have something. I'm interested to see if it will work. They have a rotor that is supposedly rust resistant, which the car I had previous to this, I bought rust resistant rotors, and they were rust resistant for about 3 weeks, and then they looked rusty like every other rotor. So I'm kind of interested to see what these really are. And the brake pads are ceramic, so they're a little quieter, less brake dust. So I'm going to.
But do they work as good as ceramics?
Yeah, they should.
They do.
Yeah, they should. I mean, they tend to be a little bit softer, but as far as stopping distance, the best stopping distance are metallic pads when they get hot, but they're also hardest on the rotors, and they don't work that good when they're cold. So I've used ceramic pads now, on just about every brake job I've done personally in the last, I don't know, dozen years, and I've had good luck with them, so I've been happy with them. So.
Here's another thing, just quickly, the rotors. I needed new rotors on my pickup truck.
Yep.
And I looked at the ones you get at the local store. I bought them, and I didn't put them on yet. And then I went down to the Ford dealership, and I picked up the OEs, the original equipment. And the venting on them, altogether different. The heaviness, the ones from the dealership was heavier, built better.
Yep.
Versus the ones you get at the local store. And it cost me $22 more for
Which
a set
is
of 2.
Yeah.
But you know what? How long is it on for?
Right.
So many, 40,000 miles or something like that?
And people say to me sometimes, should I just buy OE stuff? And sometimes it absolutely makes sense. And sometimes you look at it and it's like, it's crazy. What I try to do, and a good example is the old Volkswagen that we keep here, an ABS sensor went bad on it. And when I was looking at ABS sensors, the factory Volkswagen one was $160. The other one, I went online, and they went from $5 to $35 maybe.
Ooh.
And I found one that was a Bosch sensor made in Germany. I'm like, well, that's probably who made it originally. And that's the one I went with. So would the factory Volkswagen $165 sensor be any better than the Bosch one? They're probably the same. They're probably, if you look, they're the same one. So when I do buy not OE stuff, I try to look to see who made it. And I saw that just the other day with a water pump. Somebody was looking, and it was, it said original equipment, and then original equipment manufacturer. So that's the company that made it for the as, you know, for whatever that make of vehicle was. So you know you're getting a pretty good part. So, you know, sometimes you gotta look and play around. You know, when it comes to oil filters, you know, in my own car, I tend to use the factory oil filter because, especially in my car, there tended to be a problem not using a factory filter. So, so it depends.
Wow. Yeah.
Hey, Tom,
listen,
always great talking to you. We need to take another break. So
you take care. Have a good weekend.
You as well. Thanks, Tom.
Bye-bye.
When we come back, we're going to give away a gift certificate to the In Control school. So, you know, driveincontrol.org is how you find out more information. Here's the deal, though. You need to not have won anything in the last, 6 months or something like that. And we need your name, address, phone number, and email because I am going to be emailing you the gift certificate. So there you go. So we'll do that when we come back. But right now, why don't we take a break, pay some bills. My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. You're listening on 95.9 WATD. We'll be right back.
AAA is with you at every moment in your life. They have 24/7 roadside assistance, which covers you in any car you're driving or riding in, even a rental or your friend's wheels. They have great member rates on home and auto insurance, savings on travel, hotels, and rental cars, and discounts on hundreds of your favorite brands. You're covered on and off the road. Learn more at aaa.com/join.
Start your Sunday off right with brunch at the Old Hitching Post in Hanson. The Old Hitching Post offers a full buffet brunch every Sunday from 10 to 1. Fill up on all your favorites like eggs and bacon, sausage, home fries, French toast casserole, mac and cheese, homemade hash, fresh seafood, rice, veggies, fresh fruit, quiche, yogurt parfaits, pastries, ham, omelets, eggs Benedict, and more. The Old Hitching Post Sunday brunch from 10 to 1 at 48 Spring Street, Route 58 in Hanson. Online at oldhp.com. That's OLDEHP.com.
Hey there, folks. It's Quinn Kelly reminding you to tune in Sunday night at 5 for the South Shore's first voice in sports talk radio, The Sports Exchange. Unmatched coverage of local high school action as well as a relatable voice on all things Boston Pro Sports. We've got you covered live at 5 every Sunday night. Have a question for our host, missed last week's show, or just want to share a great sports story? You can find us on Twitter at SE on WATD. But remember, mark your calendar, folks, and we'll see you Sunday night at 5 for the Sports Exchange on 95.9 WATD.
John Paul the car doc, tune in quick. Fixes engines like a magic trick. On the airwaves he rides so slick, helping drivers when their cars go click. Handsome Jesse with the mic control, lines lit up, the cars start to roll. Transmission troubles and a tire blow, John Paul knows just where to go. John Paul fix my ride, get the engine to glide. Jesse's got it alive, together they keep us on drive. Radio crackles down the busy street.
Car Doctor program. That cracks me up. That's cool. Okay, here's the deal. If you would like to go to the In Control driver training program, or you would like to send your kid or grandkid or favorite Amazon driver, whatever the case is, we need to get your name, address, phone number, and an email, because I will email you the gift certificate from the school. And we are going to take the 9th caller. And again, you can't have won something, like if you won one of the Bling Sauce kits, you can't. No, you're out of the running right now. So you have to be somebody who wants to do this. This is a great program, absolutely worth your time, worth your money. In this case, it will be free, but absolutely worth your time to do this. And it is located in South Weymouth at the former Navy base, and usually on the weekends. So, look appropriately for this. And 9th caller, give us a call at 781-837-4900. Jesse will take the 9th call. He's in charge of counting up to 9. I'm in charge of doing this. And that is to talk about the Toyota Sequoia, which is a full-size SUV, and it's become really a competitor in that category. The Toyota manages to combine capability and family-friendly comfort. The Sequoia, although still a bit boxy has softened a little bit. Design's kind of a modern look without looking futuristic. The grille is huge. It has 22-inch wheels, and there's abundance of chrome. It's one of those vehicles sometimes a lot of chrome. I'm kind of looking out the window at my neighbors across the street here. One of them was in a Tesla, the other's in a Jeep. Not a lot of chrome on either of them. This has a lot of chrome, and it kind of gives the Sequoia a real presence on the road. It also offers a spacious cabin that comfortably seats up to 8 passengers across 3 rows. Our test vehicle had captain's chairs in the front and second row. They were both heated and ventilated. The materials throughout the car, I don't know, to go to the Lexus equivalent of this, I don't know how much better they can put materials in, but it really has a nice feel to it. Third row seats are reasonably accommodating, making it ideal for large families or going out with friends. Like all third rows, climbing into the third row is a little bit of a challenge. I mean, they sort of put a step in there, cut in so you can kind of get up and over and to the back. But, without having a door, it is a little awkward. But it's typical 3-row. Tri-zone climate control should keep all the passengers comfortable in any weather conditions. So you're one of those people that you and your co-driver are never comfortable. Dual zone. People sitting in the back seat, they get their own adjustment, so all 3 of you can, get all comfortable inside the car. Cargo area with the seats folded is cavernous, about 87 cubic feet, but it shrinks down to 11.5 feet with the rear seats pushed all the way rearward, because the rear seats do slide, so you can take advantage of legroom that way. Entry and exit is made a bit easier. Our tester had power running boards, so easy to get up into. It is a big vehicle, so you are jumping up without the running boards. Powering the Sequoia is a potent Force Max twin-turbo V6 hybrid. What does all that mean? Well, it used to be that the Sequoia had a V8 engine in it. It doesn't anymore. It has a V6 hybrid. It develops 437 horsepower and 583 pound-feet of torque. That's way more than the V8 engine that it took the place of. So if you're thinking, I want a V8. I don't want to. This thing's a monster. It has plenty of power. The engine's paired with a smooth shifting 10-speed automatic transmission. That's one more gear than the V8 had. Towing capacity is up to 9,500 pounds when properly equipped. The Sequoia is also well suited for towing larger trailers and boats. It has built-in trailer towing, braking, that sort of stuff. And it's a hybrid. I kind of skipped over that. It's a hybrid. It's got a big battery pack. And it's sort of interesting that it's so smooth, you don't really notice it's a hybrid. And when you're at a stop and you go to take off, unlike cars that just shut off and restart, there's none of that. I think it must have been a sleepy morning. I was out driving around, and I'm like, at an idle, there's no oil pressure. Oh, at an idle, it's not running. That's why there's no oil pressure. And because it takes off smoothly, you never notice the engine start. It's really impressive. It's built on a truck platform, and for a vehicle that's almost 17.5 feet long, it does pretty well traveling on and off-road. It rides pretty well. Is it a sports car? No, but it does well. It's partly due to the available 4-wheel drive, which our vehicle had, center locking differential. It can do, for a big vehicle. It can do off road. I didn't do that, other than an unpaved road, I guess. But it has 8.5 inches of ground clearance, which is better than some other vehicles that are really designed for off-road. Also, our vehicle had the optional load leveling adjustable suspension, so you can adjust things up and down. It also takes some of the wallow that some big SUVs have when you're driving, so it stays firm without being jarring. Sequoia is equipped with all the advanced safety features, including a huge 14-inch touchscreen infotainment system with smartphone integration, so your Apple CarPlay and Android Auto will all work. Our fully outfitted model also had the premium JBL 14-speaker audio system. Should keep everybody happy. The main instrument panel is actually a 12.3-inch digital meter display, so real gauges have gone away. And there's also a head-up display, that kind of reflection that looks in the the mirrors. I mean, on the windshield, so you're looking straight ahead and you can see how many miles per hour you're going, all that stuff. It's actually a big display. It's supposed to be like a 10-inch display. Is it? I think so. That's what it says. But it's actually pretty clear and good to see. Controls are generally easy to operate, minimize distractions when on the road. Visibility is generally good with the HD rear view camera and panoramic view monitor, so you can kind of give you a 360-degree view. It has large side view mirrors, which are great for towing a trailer, but they add some wicked blind spots, though. I found myself having to move the seat up higher than where I would normally sit, because literally I hit a Jeep behind the rearview mirror. You know, I went to go take a left turn, and I always, especially in cars that are not mine, I always do a really good head check, look where stuff is, and there was literally a Jeep hiding behind the rearview mirror. So, so if you look at this vehicle, these large side view mirrors, again, great if you're towing a trailer, but make sure that you've eliminated as many blind spots as possible. And again, moving the seat up, really, it did take care of a lot of that, but still a little bit awkward. Toyota, like many manufacturers, tries to prioritize safety, and they did that with this. There's Toyota Safety Sense 2.5, which includes adaptive cruise control, lane tracing, automatic emergency braking, a whole bunch of other stuff. Toyota really stands out in the competitive SUV segment with the blend of we'll call it robust performance. Yeah, it does well. Good interior, advanced technology, strong safety features. It's an excellent choice for families needing plenty of seating and cargo space, as well as for those who require towing capability without sacrificing comfort. With its improved fuel economy, way better than it was. I mean, up 4 or 5 miles per gallon over the V8 version. So it does pretty good. Updated electronics. It's a compelling vehicle for people looking for a big vehicle. Jesse, how do we do with trivia?
We have a winner.
I mean, for In Control School. Who won?
I sent you the info. Carol. Congratulations, Carol.
Well, congratulations, Carol. Good to know. So Carol can either go to school, she can send someone she cares about to school. Either way. So congratulations, Carol. Thank you for Jesse for doing a great job. Thank you for composing that song. We'll give you full credit for that.
A lot of hard work, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that. So until next week, make sure you wear your seatbelt, drive safely, be good to your car. And if you do see an emergency vehicle by the side of the road, slow down or move over. It saves lives. Talk to you all next week. Bye-bye.